بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا يفسح الله لكم. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The verse in question, verse 11 of chapter 58 of the Holy Quran, is the only verse in the Holy Book which discusses the philosophy and history of Majalis. The word Majalis is translated in the English language as congregational gatherings. As we know, the religion of Islam prides itself on being a holistic way of life. It prides itself on being a holistic system of values by which the human being can live. It provides you guidelines in the theological sphere, guidelines in the ethical sphere, guidelines in the legal sphere, guidelines in the spiritual sphere, and likewise it provides you with guidelines in terms of the social sphere. The human being is a social animal, and therefore the human being requires guidance on the social sphere. In terms of the social sphere, the religion of Islam provides you with a set of etiquettes socially. When one observes these etiquettes, they are able to maintain their discipline as a human being. You find, for example, that within the narratives there are social etiquettes, for example, how to walk as a human being, how to talk as a human being, how to sit, for example, how to eat, for example, how to engage in interaction with others. One of the most important social etiquettes which the religion of Islam sought to discuss was the etiquette of the social gathering, or the etiquette of the congregation. If you look in the Muslim world today, you'll find that there are millions upon millions of people who over the next couple of months or so will sit together in congregations where they'll honor the message of the grandson of the Prophet. You find that these are of course known as Majalis. These congregational gatherings are known as Majalis. However, these congregational gatherings have come under intense scrutiny recently. They've come under intense scrutiny from outside the school of Ahlul Bayt and from within the school of Ahlul Bayt. What do I mean? I mean, from outside the school of Ahlul Bayt, you'll find an intense scrutiny where there is a malicious attempt to try and lower from the status of these gatherings. This malicious attempt tries to highlight that these gatherings are innovations. They have got absolutely nothing to do with the message of the Prophet. They were not there in his time, and therefore any gathering which he did not institute is not part of the religion of Islam. As an even more malicious than this, would you believe, is some of the rumors and some of the hatred mongering which comes forward and states that the actions which take place in these congregational gatherings are actions against the Sharia. What do I mean? In Pakistan in the 1980s, in order to fuel sectarian hatred, you had a number of books, leaflets, and pamphlets which were produced. When it discussed the holy month of Muharram, under the month of Muharram it writes down that in this month a group of so-called Muslims sit together in a congregational gathering, switch the lights off and commit adultery with one another. You find that that malicious attempt highlights the amount of scrutiny that takes place when we come every year for these gatherings, and that's from outside of the school. Likewise, at the same time, there seems to be an increasing scrutiny within the school of Ahlul Bayt. What do I mean? I mean that a number of people recently have come forward and said that these gatherings have no real purpose in our life. As in these gatherings, all you're going to hear is the same lectures, repeated by the same lecturers, and you'll find it's always historical issues with no relevance to our life. Many times there are no contemporary discussions from this pulpit, and it's better if someone stays at home and reads a book than sits within the gathering. As in, how many times today do you hear people saying, I'd rather sit at home and read a book than come and sit in one of these congregational gatherings? In other words, what do we find? We find that these congregational gatherings have come under scrutiny from outside and indeed from within. And that's why tonight, as the introductory lecture, I'd like to examine the philosophy and the history of the term Majalis and its development in Islamic thought, in order that we're able to understand the purpose of these gatherings. And I'd like to dissect this issue in a number of stages. Number one, where is the only verse in the Quran which mentions the word Majlis, and what was the context of the revelation of this word? Number two, are Majalis therefore innovations, or is there ample evidence that they are part of the religion? Number three, how did Zayn al-Abidin divide Majalis into two? The Battalin and the Tawabin. And what's the difference between the Majalis of the Battalin and the Majalis of the Tawabin? Number four, should these Majalis require a reform? And if they should be reformed, which topics should now start to appear from here, which haven't been discussed before? And number five, what was the purpose of the first Majlis of Zayn al-Abidin in Sham? And have we truly honored that purpose today? Let's examine this and dissect this topic in complete depth. There's only one verse in the Quran which mentions the word Majlis. As in, if you go to many people today and you say to him that where is Majlis mentioned in the Quran, you'll find many who'll say, to tell you the truth, I haven't got a clue where it's mentioned. As in, I know that it's a gathering we go to, but I'm not sure what its origin is. There is only one verse in the Quran, and that is verse 11, chapter 58. What's the context of its revelation? The Holy Prophet used to sit down in his mosque in Medina. His mosque in Medina, he made the central hub for everyone to gather. In which way? He wanted to highlight for us that our mosque should be the central place for all of us to come together. As in, what he did is he made Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina a mosque where everybody could come, everybody could discuss their affairs with each other, people were able to interact with each other, everybody had a role in the mosque. If you wanted, for example, a job in the community, you'd come to the mosque. If you wanted, for example, literature on the religion, you'd come and sit within the mosque. If, for example, you wanted even food because you were poor, you would come to the mosque. You'd find the Holy Prophet wanted to highlight to us that a mosque should never be empty of its community, as in you'd find that that mosque, Masjid al-Nabawi, was full 365 days of the year. And the idea that barring the year, let's say the years going towards Hajj, that mosque would be one which is full, but not just full, it had a spirit to its followers. Because what's the point of Masjid al-Nabawi being a grand mosque without the spirit? The vibrancy of any mosque is its people, isn't it? As in, if the people are there, the mosque is alive. If the people are not present, then the mosque is dead. You find many mosques in the Muslim world today, the mosque is a grand stature, but the mosque is only full on 2 months of the year, the month of Muharram and the month of Ramadan. Outside of the month of Muharram and the month of Ramadan, it's very rare to see the mosque full. Originally, Rasulullah, when he built Masjid al-Nabawi, the aim of Masjid al-Nabawi was not just for salah, not just for prayers. The aim of Masjid al-Nabawi was for people to come, sit, congregate and learn. I remember Aqil, son of Abu Talib. would sit with 3 other people in Masjid al-Nabawi. They'd sit down, 4 of them next to each other. They'd let a prayer mat out in front of each other, and people would come near them. They'd come and sit in front of Aqil. Oh, Aqil, son of Abu Talib, I want to get married. Notice, when he wants to get married, he comes to his mosque. He sits in front of Aqil. He says to him, Aqil, find me a lady, for example, because as you know, Aqil knew the genealogies. He was able to tell you the ancestors of the families. So someone would come and sit in front of him, for example, in Masjid al-Nabawi itself. He'd come and he'd say, Aqil, I'm looking for a family whose ladies are known for their beauty. Aqil ibn Abu Talib, what would he do? He'd say, come back to me in a month. I'll tell you about a line whose ladies are beautiful. Then someone else would come and say, I'm looking for a lady or I'm looking for a family whose ladies have the best of morals. Aqil ibn Abu Talib would say, sit down. Come back to me in a month, and I will give you the example of a lady whose family are known for their morals. And that's why Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he was looking for a wife after the Lady of Light died, who did he go to see to look for his wife? Ali ibn Abi Talib came to Masjid al-Nabawi. He sat in front of his brother Aqil. Someone asks, Ali ibn Abi Talib himself can't find a wife? He needs to ask someone? No, Ali ibn Abi Talib was showing us that everybody has a role in the community. Not just the son of Abu Talib. If my brother's expertise is genealogy, he has a role in the mosque. If your expertise is mathematics, you have a role in the mosque. If your expertise is medicine, you have a role in the mosque. Every science or every humanity or every art, when you master it, you have to give that knowledge back to the mosque, not only outside. You found that Ali ibn Abi Talib sat in front of his brother. He said to him, find me a wife from whose line there are valiant warriors. Aqil looked at him and he said, come back to me within a month, my dear brother. When he came back, he said to him, there is a lady by the name of Fatima bint Hizam al-Kilabiyya. Of course, her name wasn't al-Banin. Her name was Fatima bint Hizam. al-Banin was a title later. Whenever she would see Amir al-Mu'mineen, remember, Fatima al-Zahra, she'd see a tear being shed. So she said, change my name to al-Banin. Therefore, Masjid al-Nabawi was a central hub. Likewise, in Masjid al-Nabawi, Rasulullah used to sit on a ledge next to where he is buried today. The ledge in the Arabic language was called Suffa. And that's why those of you who've been to Hajj, when you go to Medina first, have you seen the ledge around the grave where you see these men standing with sticks? So you find that that ledge around his grave, that ledge which was around his grave, he used to sit there. Ashab al-Suffa, some of them, who were they? They were the poor members of Medina. They were poverty-stricken. When Rasulullah would sit there, they'd come and sit next to him. For example, the known companion of the Prophet, Abu Huraira, who was a companion of the Prophet for the last few years of his life. Abu Huraira was of Ashab al-Suffa originally. He was from the people of the Suffa. They would sit near that ledge. They would sit near that ledge. Rasulullah would sit on this ledge. When he would sit on this ledge, that's where he would hold what was known as a Majlis. Someone said, Ammar, how could you hold a Majlis when Imam al-Hussein hasn't died yet? Originally, a Majlis wasn't in honor of Imam al-Hussein. Originally, a Majlis was a gathering to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Later, when it became a gathering for Imam al-Hussein, it's because reflection on Imam al-Hussein makes you truly understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But originally, a Majlis, when Rasulullah would sit on the Suffa, originally, what was the Majlis? Originally, the Majlis was, he would sit there, and these companions would sit near him, and he'd give a lesson to the companions in relation to the religion of Islam. So these companions would sit near him, and they would love him so much that they'd actually stick to him like glue. As in, imagine now, I'm sitting down on this mimbar, and you find someone who says, you know what, said Ammar, I want to come and sit either side of you. One sits here, another sits here, and they stick next to me. I'd probably say to them, sit back down if you don't mind. Rasulullah, no. Rasulullah's morals and etiquettes are the highest of morals. Rasulullah, they'd stick next to him when he's giving his majlis, when he's giving the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they'd sit next to him, Rasulullah would not say anything. Now you can imagine if you're giving a lecture and someone is sticking right next to you. Why? Because they see you as a mercy while you're alive, isn't it? As in Rasulullah, not just physically, but spiritually, the energy that surrounds him is a pure, unique energy. And that's why in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we're unique in our belief that Rasulullah, dead or alive, his energy is the same. If his body is under the ground, the pure soul of Muhammad is above the ground. Hence in salah, when you say to him, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi, you expect a salam back from him, don't you? It's because you know that that soul is still there. You found that he would sit and they'd be squeezing, he wouldn't say anything until one day. Qais ibn Thabit walked into the Majlis. When Qais ibn Thabit walked into the Majlis, nobody stood up for him. Qais ibn Thabit was a scholar of the scholars of Islam. Qais ibn Thabit was a warrior at the Battle of Badr. Rasulullah was sitting, they were sitting next to him. Rasulullah saw that when Qais walked in, instead of those sitting next to him standing up and saying, this is a man of knowledge, they remained seated. As in, for example, myself, with my little knowledge that I have, when I've walked into this mimbar, people stand up out of that recognition of a little amount of knowledge. Someone like Qais ibn Thabit, Rasulullah was saddened that Qais ibn Thabit walks in, and you're sitting down while an alim has walked in. As soon as he saw this, it hurt him that nobody made any space for Qais. They stayed sitting down. Whatever hurts Muhammad hurts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala straight away revealed the verse, the only verse in the Quran where the word Majlis is used. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Oh, you who believe. إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ تَفَسَّحُوا فِي الْمَجَالِسِ فَافْسَحُوا يَفْسَحِ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Oh, you who believe, when it's told to you to make space in the majalis, make space. Meaning what? Meaning that there's a social etiquette. When a man of knowledge walks into a majlis, there's an etiquette the religion of Islam pointed at. You see the intricacies of this religion? Even the most minute detail it focuses on. That the Jews, when this verse was revealed, the Jews, you know what they said? Muhammad is a man who has a class system in his religion. I said, what do you mean? Said Muhammad puts the people of knowledge higher than any other human. No, Rasulullah wasn't saying they're higher than everybody else. Rasulullah was saying reverence to an alim is obligatory on every Muslim. Why? Because that scholar has taken it upon themselves not only to go and gain knowledge, but to disseminate knowledge as well, isn't it? As in, there are many of us in this hall who read books, but there's not many of us who disseminate what we read. We keep it to ourselves. Imam al-Ghazali used to say, treat your knowledge like you treat your wealth. You earn wealth, and what do you do with wealth as well? You save it, and you spend it. Your knowledge. Earn it, save it, spend it. You found that Rasulullah wanted to highlight, when a scholar walks into a majlis, the social etiquette is for the people to stand up. You find here that it highlighted that Islam had a social etiquette even for a congregation. As in even a congregation, when people come together, be it a congregation of happiness or a congregation of mourning, Islam had an etiquette for it. And that's why the etiquettes have to continue today. Why? Because if we can't look after our morals in our mosques, forget telling the world about morality. There's too many of us who want to change the world when we can't even change our own mosque. We've forgotten some of the etiquettes of the majalis in our mosque, and we want to go to the world and tell them we are a religion of morals. The problem is, do we observe these morals in our gatherings or no? What do I mean? I mean there are, in the same way Rasulullah, in the first majlis in the Quran, in the same way Rasulullah wanted social etiquettes to be observed, you find a lack of social etiquettes today in certain gatherings. What do I mean? Amongst the social etiquettes, when you're sitting in a majlis, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering His words and His verses, amongst the etiquettes is not to chew gum when you're sitting when Allah's name is being mentioned. As in, how many do you see today sitting in a majlis, the Quran is being recited, he's chewing gum in front of you, right in front of you, as if he's sitting in his front lounge at home. You're sitting in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With a non-Muslim, if you went to their house, you'd sit in front of him and chew gum like that? Oh no, you'd have that reverence. That's when I've come to a gathering, I'm not going to sit and chew gum while a speaker is speaking. You'll find some people will only not chew gum in the month of Muharram, because that's when everybody becomes holy. Other than that, if it's a normal Thursday, you may find sitting away, chewing one bit after the other, as if there's no problem. That's an etiquette number one. Number two, today, how many times you find in a majlis someone sticking his feet out right in front of you? Say, excuse me, where are you sitting? You're sticking your feet out like that in front of me. As in when you're sitting in a majlis and you've got your feet stuck out in front of someone, your feet are meant to be rolled back in honor of that social gathering. This religion wasn't just a religion of haram and halal. It was a religion which wanted to make our morals the highest wherever we may be. When you find today it's normal, a man who would think of himself as religious, as in if you came and told him that you're doing something wrong, he'll be like, how am I doing something wrong? I pray and I fast. Forget that. That the legs being stretched out, that's a social etiquette that has to be corrected. Allama Muqaddas al-Ardabili, may Allah bless him. Do you know that never once in his life, never once, did he stretch his feet out? The narrations from his students as well and from his family members, never once in his life, if he's in a gathering, would he stretch his feet out in front of anyone. They asked him, Allama, why don't you stretch your feet out? Is it haram? He said, no, it's not haram. They said to him, then why don't you stretch your feet out when you're in a gathering? He said, I'm worried that the imam of my time may be in the seat in front of me. Isn't it? As in, imagine now when I say, Allahumma kunni walika, I'm in recognition that I have an imam in occultation. And occultation means I can't pinpoint where he is, can I? Now if I'm sitting in a majlis and my feet are sticking out, how do I know that my feet aren't sticking out on the grandson of Fatima al-Zahra? As in, there needs to be a recognition here, number two. Number three, a culture, even within Majalis today, what do you find? A culture where it's normal for someone to take their phone out and contact somebody else on the phone. Subhanallah. As in, you'll find him texting, the Maulana speaking as if there's no problem. Texting away, or what is it today, BBMing and all of these things. You find moving, yes, as if nobody is listening to Allah's words when Allah's Quran is being recited. How dare I click on my phone when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name is being mentioned? And even if I take it a step further, you'll find today a youth may sit on the wall while someone older than him is sitting without a wall behind him. A youth finds it normal that my back is relaxed on a wall while someone double my age is sitting in front of me without anyone to look after him. In other words, what are we saying? There's an etiquette to every social gathering. From the time when the verse was revealed in Medina until today, there's an etiquette. And even on a side note, I tell you, even this culture of majalis on the internet is destroying some of our gatherings. Now someone will say, well, who are you to say that? Considering that you may have lectures on the internet as well. The internet is like a knife. It can kill a human or it can cut an orange. It has its benefits and it has its disadvantages. Amongst its benefits is for someone elderly, they can listen to a majlis on the internet. Someone who may be pregnant can listen to a majlis on the internet. Someone in an area where there's no majlis, they can listen to it on the internet. But for someone who lives half an hour away from a mosque, for them to give an excuse that I will not attend the gathering because I'm tired. That man who you're honoring in the mosque, you think he wasn't tired on that day on the 10th of Muharram. As in when you come and leave your mosques empty and you allow for a mosque to be without that spiritual reverence because you're tired so you can click on a majlis. I tell you, anyone who listens to a majlis on the internet, the feeling and the vibe is never the same. You can listen as much as you want, but to see the speaker in front of you makes something completely different. And also, not just that, I come to the majlis not because I want to come and learn only. I want to meet people of my community. I want to see how people are doing in my community. I want to honor the message of the religion of Islam. In other words, the Quran highlighted in Surah 58 verse 11 that there was an etiquette to the majalis which had to be observed. The question then arises, therefore, is a majlis a bid'ah? Is it an innovation? The answer is of course no. Number one, because of this verse which highlights that Rasulullah, while he was alive, he had already conducted a majlis while he's in Medina. Likewise, you go a step further. Is it an innovation? No, it's not. Because through a majlis, you're honoring verses of the Quran which are obligatory upon you. What do I mean? I mean that there are a series of verses in the Quran which you're honoring when you're within a majlis. For example, amongst the verses, if someone tells you a majlis is an innovation, amongst the verses, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, chapter 42, verse 23. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ بِالْقُرْبَى. Quran said, I do not ask from you anything except love for my family. When I come to a majlis, aren't I observing the principles of this verse? As in, when I come to a majlis, I'm coming to honor this verse. Rasulullah was told by his Lord, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ بِالْقُرْبَى. I don't ask anything from you except love for my family. You find therefore, that's a verse. Another of the verses, Surah 7, verse 157. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. فَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِهِ وَعَزَرُوهُ وَنَصَرُوهُ وَاتَّبَعُوا النُّورَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ مَعَهُ. Please listen to the verse. Those who believe in the Prophet Muhammad and those who honor the Prophet Muhammad. Are we not honoring the Prophet Muhammad when we come to a majlis of Imam al-Hussein? As in, didn't the Prophet himself say, Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. Allah loves the one who loves Hussein. When I come, the Quran tells me whoever honors the Prophet is successful. I come to a majlis, I'm honoring Rasulullah. Rasulullah told me part of his sunnah is to honor Abu Abdullah. That's another verse. Another verse in the Quran which highlights Majalis and our role and our acts. Surah 33 verse 56. When Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتُهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَنِ النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. That's another verse. Allah and His angels send their blessings on the Prophet. Oh, you who believe, it's your responsibility now. It's an obligation for you to send your blessings. When I come to a majlis, aren't I sending my blessings on the family of the Prophet? Aren't I sending my blessings on the Prophet himself? Those who came in Pakistan or in Saudi Arabia and said that your majalis are where you switch off the lights and commit adultery. Come to a majlis, come and see. Other than the remembrance of Muhammad and Al-Muhammad, is there anything else that's being done? Even go a step further. When a great-grandson of the Prophet himself originates a majlis, can it be an innovation? As in, would someone like Imam al-Sadiq innovate? Impossible. Imam al-Sadiq, who taught grandmasters like Abu Hanifa, like Malik ibn Anas. Imam al-Sadiq would never innovate. These students never once would they say that Jaffar ibn Muhammad was an innovator. They'd always say Jaffar ibn Muhammad, whatever he said, was in line of his grandfather. You know, in the month of Muharram, Imam al-Sadiq, what he would do? In the month of Muharram, he'd call Jaffar bin Affan. He'd say to him, Jaffar, let's sit in a majlis. Remind me of what happened on the 10th of Muharram. And Jaffar would recite, and Imam al-Sadiq would be overcome with tears while listening. And then he'd say to him, oh Jaffar, do you think it is only us who are in this majlis crying? Know that the angels come to a majlis to weep for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. In other words, Imam al-Sadiq, if Imam al-Sadiq thought a majlis is an innovation, Imam al-Sadiq would have said, no majalis, you cannot congregate, there is no such thing as mourning. On the contrary, Imam al-Sadiq, through his actions, he highlighted. That's why the next issue arises. How did Imam Zayn al-Abidin, therefore, divide majalis? This is something quite beautiful. Why? Because when you look in Islamic literature, you'll find majalis are rarely mentioned. As in the Quran, chapter 58, verse 11. Imam Zayn al-Abidin mentioned majalis in one particular dua of his. Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali. You know that dua in the month of Ramadan? When you recite it and you keep flicking the page and you think there's about another 30 pages left. And you keep flicking and you're like, only on the 23rd night would I do such a thing. That dua of Abu Hamza al-Thamali, I tell you, you are hard-pressed to find a supplication in this religion like dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali. And I tell you, the school of Al-Muhammad, you know what differentiates them from any other school in Islam? The spirituality that comes from their supplications puts them miles above everybody else. As in, show me any other school in Islam. Theologically, fantastic. Legally, fantastic. No one in any other school can make a supplication like Zayn al-Abidin. Zayn al-Abidin, when he begins to supplicate, nobody can come in the message of his supplications. Be it Dua Abu Hamza, be it Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq, be it any of the du'as in Sahiba Sajjadiyah, Imam Zain al-Abidin, in Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali, what does he do? In Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali, sit them down. In Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali, what does Imam Zain al-Abidin do? Imam Zain al-Abidin, in Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali, he divides Majalis into two. Majalis, the first type of Majalis Imam talks about is the Majalis known as Majalis al-Battalin. What does he mean, Majalis al-Battalin? Majalis al-Battalin can affect us today in Toronto. In which way? Majalis al-Battalin is when I go to a Majlis, the first opinion is when I go to a Majlis and my only intention in going to that Majlis is to sit and gossip and make rumors about the community. Majalis al-Battalin is when a group of people, their aim in coming to a Majlis isn't to learn. No, they tell you, I'm not coming to learn. I'm coming to sit and see what's the politics in our community at the moment. Who shall we attack now? Because you know, every month someone's hung on the washing line, isn't it? Every month. We have someone else goes on the washing line. One day it's you. When it's over with you, they've put someone else on the washing line. And if you're unfortunate, you may come back to that washing line again. You find Majalis al-Battalin, what are they? Imam Zain al-Abidin says, Ya Allah, keep me away from Majalis al-Battalin. In which way? In the idea that Majalis al-Battalin, the people who come to them are those whose only interest is gossip and backbiting. I'll come to the mosque. I want to see what is he doing today in the mosque. What's he going to say today? What's he going to act today? I want to see what's she wearing today. How can I attack her today? Is she a hypocrite? Is he a hypocrite? That Majalis, Imam Zain al-Abidin called it Majalis al-Battalin. The people have nothing else to do. You know, idle thumbs makes the work of the devil, isn't it? Imam Zain al-Abidin, what does he say? He says, Ya Allah, keep me away from Majalis al-Battalin. Because those Majalis, the type of people who've come, a Majlis, what is it? When I enter a Majlis, it should bring me out closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? You find that those people, no, there's no closeness. He enters the Majlis, he comes out exactly the same, if not worse. If not worse. That person, when he comes to a Majlis, what's his role when he comes? He comes to a Majlis with only one intention. I've come here to gossip and to backbite. And I tell you, in Islamic history, we had some Majalis of Battalin under some Khulafa, which leave a lot to be desired when you read about them. As in, you find some of the Umayyad Khulafa were known for having Majalis al-Battalin. The Majalis of gossip, hatred and attack. Let me give you an example. In Yemen today, you have 9 million Shia called Zaydi Shia, isn't it? In Yemen, if you go to Yemen, you'll find 9 million Shia known as Zaydi Shia. Who do they follow? They follow Zayd, the son of Imam Zain al-Abidin. They follow Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, then Imam al-Hassan, then Imam al-Hussein, Imam Zain al-Abidin, and then his son Zayd. You find that the narrations say to us, that's why do they follow Zayd and not Imam al-Baqir? They say Imam al-Baqir never rose against the Caliph of his time, whereas Zayd rose against the Caliph. And so the fifth Imam to them is Zayd. You find Zayd ibn Imam Zain al-Abidin, he died because of Majalis al-Battalin. What do I mean? Zayd had heard that Hisham bin Abd al-Malik, the Umayyad Khalifa, was destroying the very fabric of Majalis. Majalis, when the Quran revealed them, the original meaning was what? The original meaning was that a Majlis is where Allah is remembered. By the time we reached Hisham bin Abd al-Malik, Majalis had reached the stage where Allah and His Prophet aren't remembered. No, they're attacked. Zayd, son of Imam Zain al-Abidin, what did he do? He said, let me go to listen to this Majlis firsthand. As in, if someone ever tells you someone said something in a Majlis, you can either accept it, or you could say, hold on, let me go and sit in the Majlis, and let me see what he says, isn't it? Imam Zayd, what did he do? Zayd went towards the Majlis. When he went towards the Majlis, he sat down. Hisham bin Abd al-Malik was sitting down next to it. Next to him, he had a poet by the name of Al-Akhtal. Al-Akhtal was a Christian poet. Subhanallah, Muslim Caliphate, Christian poet. Those of you who want to do a PhD in Islamic studies, I recommend you try and do a PhD, the influence of Christianity on the Umayyad palace. You will find unbelievable stories. that sometimes you'll think Muawiyah, when he married Maysoon, Yazid's mother, who was a Christian, you'd think that Muawiyah had an intention to bring Christianity into this religion and remove the religion. You find Hisham bin Abdul Malik had a poet next to him by the name of Al-Akhtal. Al-Akhtal is reciting his poetry. Zayd, son of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, is standing there in front of him. In his poetry, he began by cursing Rasulullah from the pulpit. Majalis al-Battaleen, the cause of gossip and hatred, nothing else. You'd think he would sit there and honor Rasulullah, remember the legacy of Rasulullah. On the contrary, he says, Al-Akhtal, keep cursing. Zayd stood up. He said, Hisham. Hisham said, who are you? He said, I am Zayd. Zayd who? He said, Zayd, son of Zayn al-Abidin. He said, oh, you, whose mother was the slave girl. Khalifa of the Muslims. You, whose mother was the slave girl, because Zayd's mother was from Sindh. You know, in Pakistan, Imam Zayn al-Abidin had married a lady from Sindh, from Pakistan, modern day Pakistan. You found that this lady who was from Sindh was Zayd's mother. Her complexion was not an Arab complexion. Zayd, therefore, his complexion wasn't Arab. Hisham bin Abdul Malik, what did he do? He said, you're the one whose mom is the slave girl. Zayd said, it's not an embarrassment. A prophet of God, his mother was a slave girl, Prophet Ismail alayhi salam. His mother Hajar, what was she, a princess or a slave? Slave. He looked at him and he said, how dare you speak to me like this, get out. Zayd said to him at that moment, how dare you curse Rasulullah like this? This is a majlis. A majlis is meant to honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet. You've made a mockery of a majlis. You've destroyed the fabric of a majlis. This is Majalis al-Battaleen. Eventually, Yusuf al-Thaqafi, Hajjaj's father. You know Hajjaj, what do you call him? Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Yusuf al-Thaqafi, eventually Zayd rose against Yusuf al-Thaqafi. You know why Zayd rose at the end? When he heard them at the end of the majlis curse Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. It's what, do you know how the Majalis became? From earlier, the Quran was talking of the Majalis in Masjid al-Nabawi. Now we had Majalis where Fatima al-Zahra is being cursed, where Rasulullah was being cursed. Zayd stood up against Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Eventually, they killed Zayd and they burnt his body. They hung his body, then they burnt his body at the end. You found that Majalis al-Battaleen, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, in dua, Abu Hamza al-Thamali says, Ya Allah, keep me away from Majalis al-Battaleen. Then the Imam later in the dua of Abu Hamza al-Thamali says, Ya Allah, let me sit in Majalis al-Tawwabin. What did the Imam mean here? Imam here meant a majlis should be a majlis whose very basis is the act of tawbah. When I come in the month of Muharram, Imam Zayn al-Abidin wanted me to come to a majlis with the intention being that I'm sitting in Majalis al-Tawwabin. You look at how grand the gathering is tonight. All of us want to sit in a majlis of the Tawwabin. Tawwabin means what? The word tawbah originally comes from the word awwab, which means someone who returns, isn't it? When we say astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh, what do we mean? We mean, Ya Allah, forgive me, and now I'm returning back to your path. Before Muharram, I've been a sinner, I've been arrogant, I've been rude, I've neglected you and your message. Ya Allah, the month of Muharram brings me back and I'm going to change and I'm going to pledge allegiance and I'm going to continue to be on your path. How many times you see people in this month who haven't been to the mosque the whole year, they come. Sometimes someone says, look, they only come in Muharram. No! Look at the cup half full. Maybe they're coming to change in Muharram, isn't it? Why look at the cup half empty? Why say, no, they only come in Muharram? Say their majlis of Muharram, according to Zayn al-Abidin dua, Abu Hamza al-Thamali, is the Majalis of the Tawwabin. Those who come to the majlis, who sit there with the intention that, Ya Allah, in this holy month, if I haven't worn hijab previously, Ya Allah, the month of Muharram will bring me towards wearing hijab. Ya Allah, this holy month, if I'm the type who listens to music all my life, this holy month, sometimes you find someone who says, but Sayyid Ammar, Muharram and Safar, I don't listen to music. Because of course Allah is awake in Muharram and Safar. The rest of the year Allah goes back to sleep. Unbelievable. We say in the Quran, لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. Sleep doesn't overcome him. But the way the Muslims behave, you think sleep overcomes him for the whole year except Muharram and Safar. Muharram and Safar, Allah is awake. The rest of the year, sleep doesn't overcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You find that Majalis al-Tawwabin was a majlis of what? that I'm going to come to the Majlis, and my intention is I'm going to return back to the path of the lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question then arises in this analysis, do these Majalis need reform or no? Because we said that the scrutiny of Majalis, not just from outside, from within. Certain people now will admit that we don't come to Majalis anymore because it's the same topics repeated every year, there's nothing new. They have a point. They have a point. Because this Majlis was meant to discuss every subject. There was no embarrassing subjects. The problem is the mimbar became a place where you repeat the same issue every year without bringing new material. Every year, the intention was what? How can I attack other Muslims? I'm going to prove to you in 10 nights they're all wrong and I'm right. What are you talking about? A Majlis was meant to be a place where I bring innovative concepts which relate to the world in the 21st century, isn't it? Do you know we lost a whole generation, aged 30 to 40, because of this very area? They kept on saying, Maulana, bring new topics. Maulana, discuss current affairs. Maulana, the issues which are taboo, bring them on the mimbar. And instead of the mimbar being a place where taboo subjects were being discussed, it only became a place where the same topics were being discussed. As an example, if now today you want to hear a topic on same-gender relations, same gender, you'll find a topic where today it's rife that people have same-gender relations. Will you ever find someone who's willing on the mimbar to dissect the issue of same-gender relations? You'll find people, the holier-than-thou people, they always sit below the mimbar, not here. You'll find them coming and saying, you can't mention the word homosexuality on the mimbar. You're not allowed to. It's not acceptable. What do you mean it's not acceptable? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran only mentioned 25 prophets. And one of them was a prophet called Lut. Why would Allah mention his story? So you bring it on the mimbar. For many years, taboo subjects, they blocked them from coming on the mimbar. A Majlis, which originally was meant to be a place of knowledge, became a place where you just repeat the same stories over and over again. Repetition is good. A reminder is needed. But there's nothing wrong with taboo subjects being on the mimbar. Someone says, but it's the sanctity of the mimbar. Ironically, the one who always says that is the one who's never sat on the mimbar. Have I ever come to you when you're a pharmacist and said to you the sanctity of pharmacy? Have I ever come to you when you're a lawyer and said the sanctity of law? Why is it that when someone wants to discuss a taboo subject here, it's always the ones who haven't studied the subject who tell him not? And we lost the generation. Why? Because they said the mimbar doesn't answer our questions. And if the religion doesn't answer, let's go somewhere else. A Majlis in this century requires reform, there's no doubt. And if a Maulana is not willing to reform, then that Maulana shouldn't be sitting on the mimbar of Al-Muhammad. Because the mimbar of Al-Muhammad was meant to be a place where any subject of same-gender relations is not a taboo. Subject of adultery is not a taboo. So other subjects in this line are not taboos. If Allah mentions them in the Quran, then I can use the Quran to dissect them. And that's why you find, therefore, when it comes towards the Imam, that first Majlis of Imam al-Hussein, which was given in the area of Sham. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when he stood in that first Majlis, he highlighted to us what was meant to be our role when we give Majalis. And you need to understand that's why Imam Zayn al-Abidin stood in front of Majalis al-Battalin, but in 1 hour changed it into Majalis al-Tawabin. Because Yazid stood in front of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Yazid, right in front of him, he stood and he was reciting the famous lines of poetry of the Battalin, of those who are idle, of those who have nothing else to do but cause hatred. He recited the poetry in front of Zayn al-Abidin. ليت أشياخي ببدر شهدوا جزع الخزرج من وقع الأسل لا أهلوا واستهلوا فرحا ثم قالوا يا يزيد لا تشل لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا خبر جاء ولا وحي نزل. You find that this Yazid, you know what he said? Because you know Yazid was renowned for his poetry. Imam Zayn al-Abidin was once asked, what do you think of Yazid? They tried to make the Imam curse him. Imam replied, Yazid was a good poet. You can't lower Zayn al-Abidin. He was a good poet. He recited poetry in front of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Imam Zayn al-Abidin didn't reply back with hatred. No. He said, that's all you can give me? Now let me show you what is a Majlis of the Tawabin. Imam recited that famous khutbah in Sham, and the first 3 points of the khutbah highlights what our first 3 points should be when we give a majlis anywhere in the world. He said the first aim of any majlis is ridan lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I achieve the pleasure of Allah first and foremost. A majlis shouldn't be for the pleasure of the people, nor for the pleasure of the speaker, but only for the pleasure of Allah. I tell you, if more speakers lived by that code, we'd have more changes. Because how many do you see sit up here? Their only concern is, how do I get re-invited here? So he gives you topics. He said, what do you want? What do you mean, what do you want? You're meant to have the eyes bigger than theirs. You're meant to be the one who fashions an agenda. No, you tell me, what do you want? How can I entertain you? It became a source of entertainment. How can I woo the masses through entertaining them? Not knowledge. Entertainment. Poetry. Rhetoric. Nothing more. You found Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, the first aim of a majlis when he stood in Sham, in front of Yazid, Radan lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That my first aim is the pleasure of Allah when I give this majlis in front of you. Then the second aim was what? Al-Islah fi ummati jaddi Rasulullah. What? The unity in the ummah of my grandfather Rasulullah. We have some disgraceful representatives of our madhab on YouTube at the moment. Honestly. And no one speaks out. And may Allah lengthen the life of Sayyid Ali Sistani and Sayyid Ali al-Khamenei for their stand when they stood against members of their own religion who on YouTube curse the personalities of other schools in Islam. Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Sham says the second aim of a majlis is what? Is to bring reform and unity in the ummah, not to break the ummah. On YouTube today, you'll find people dressed like clerics on YouTube, hiding in a house somewhere in London where nobody can see them. They'll sit there and they'll send curses on personalities revered by others in Islam. I may disagree with those personalities. It doesn't mean I talk offensively about them. Why, someone says? Because when I talk offensively, there may be a member of my madhab in Para Chinar who gets executed because of me. Because of me, not because of you. In Para Chinar, near Peshawar, do you know how many people have been their bodies mutilated? Because of who? Because of others or because of our own lectures? Lectures of Zayn al-Abidin Sham, he said, oh Yazid, this second aim of this majlis is I bring unity in this ummah, not disunity. Whereas today, when they speak with their big mouths, they're causing a killing of someone in Para Chinar, a killing of someone in Bahrain, a killing of someone in Saudi Arabia, and actual killing in Iraq, where because of a foul-mouthed Maulana giving a majlis, you found destroying the etiquette of Zayn al-Abidin. A bomb blast happened in Iraq where they said purposely, that Maulana in London, the filthy language that he uses, we will therefore come and kill you. Brothers, the second aim was what? Unity or disunity. Al-Muhammad said, don't compromise your beliefs. Have your beliefs, but be tolerant of others' beliefs. Isn't it? Be tolerant. Another Muslim may not have read the books I've read. So how could I judge them? Let me give them the books and then let's discuss. The Quran says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah, all of you together, and do not disunite. And then thirdly, what was the last aim of the majlis in front of Yazid? To honor those personalities who laid down their lives in honor of the message of Islam. As in how many times in the Quran does Allah say, remember Ibrahim, remember Ishaq, remember Yaqub. Allah orders us, remember those who came before you, honor their sacrifices. Because if it wasn't for their sacrifices, none of you would be here today. If it wasn't for them laying down their lives for you, none of you would have the message today. If it wasn't for every sacrifice on that 10th of Muharram, from the 6-month-old baby, to the man whose hands lay on the ground by the Furat, to the man who the horses trampled on his body when he lay on the ground, to that young nephew of his whose face was like a moon, and by the end they had stuck their feet into his face. Each and every one of them, their sacrifices remain part of the religion. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, the third aim is that you honor those personalities. And he honored each and every one of them in his speech in Sham. He honored Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. He honored Jaffar al-Tayyar. He honored Ali ibn Abi Talib. He honored, of course, Rasulullah. he honored Fatima al-Zahra, he honored one by one, until he came to the honoring of his father, Imam al-Hussein. Because ultimately, that relationship between a father and a son is the most delicate relationship. And especially if you didn't have a mother in your life. Imam Zain al-Abidin's mother, Shahr Banu, died after she gave birth to Imam Zain al-Abidin. So that meant that all he knew in his life was his father. He had nobody else but his father in his life. Nobody else. His whole life was his father. His love was his father. He had nobody he could look up to like his father. And years after Karbala, he'd remember the sacrifice of his father. One narration mentions if he walked past a man who was slaughtering some sheep, he'd come towards the man. He'd say to him, "Oh man who is slaughtering the sheep, have you given water to that sheep before you've slaughtered it?" And the man would look at him and he'd say, "Yes, of course I've given the sheep water." Any creation of Allah deserves water before it's killed. He'd look at him and he'd say, "Oh man, they killed my father without giving him any water." Another narration, what does it mention? Another narration mentions that Imam Zain al-Abidin one day asked the man, "When I die, would you bury me?" He said, "Of course I'd bury you. You are Zain al-Abidin." He said, "My father's body lay on the ground for 3 nights without anyone to bury him." On a third occasion, and this one hurts quite a bit, on a third occasion, he was seeing a man one day shouting out, "I'm a stranger, I'm a stranger. I beg you, one of you help me." Imam Zain al-Abidin walked towards him. He said to him, "Oh man, are you a stranger because you have no food to eat?" He said, "No, I have food to eat, alhamdulillah." He said to him, "Are you a stranger because you have no clothes to wear?" He said to him, "No, alhamdulillah, I have clothes to wear." He said to him, "Are you a stranger because you have no one to bury you when you die?" He said, "No, I have people to bury me when I die." He said, "Then don't call yourself a stranger. The stranger is the man who lay on the ground in Karbala with no one to look after his body on the ground." And that's why ultimately Imam al-Baqir is the best of the narrators about Imam Zain al-Abidin. Until the last moments of his death, Imam Zain al-Abidin's mind was with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. That's why the narrations say about Imam Zain al-Abidin that while he was dying, the poison had begun to surround his body. The narrations mention Imam al-Baqir walked towards Imam Zain al-Abidin. He saw that the poison was now causing him pain. Imam al-Baqir narrates, "I walked towards the body of Imam Zain al-Abidin. I embraced my father's body on his chest." Those of you who have to see your father die, how difficult is it in those final moments? How difficult is it to see your father on his deathbed? He says, "I came to my father Zain al-Abidin. I embraced his chest. As soon as I embraced his chest, I saw him begin to cry in a way I've never seen him cry before. I said to him, 'Oh my father, why do you cry? When in a moment you'll see Rasulullah, and you'll see Fatima al-Zahra, and you'll see Ali ibn Abi Talib, and you'll see Imam al-Hassan, and you'll see Imam al-Hussein.'" He said to him, "Oh my father, why do you cry when I hug you on your chest?" Listen to the reply. He said to him, "Oh my son Muhammad, 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 I cry because when I die, you are on my chest. Whereas when my father Abu Abdullah died, do you know who sat on the chest of my father?" Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst those who follow their message in this world and the hereafter. For the originators of this Majlis, allow them to be blessed with your mercy, and allow us to honor the Majalis of Allah in the best of ways possible. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.